Hi everyone, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and welcome to another video. And I decided to do another movie ranking. I haven't done any rankings in a while actually, but this is the first time I'm ever doing a ranking of movies by director, because admittedly it is pretty hard when a director has so many movies to his name. Just hard to decide which movie you like or dislike a little more, but when you only have 4 movies so far to your career, it's much easier, and that's why I decided to do the ranking of all 4 movies by Robert Eggers, who I think is a really phenomenal and excellent director, and currently still one of the few saving graces of Hollywood, because this guy truly cares for quality storytelling. He doesn't care about any of the stupid modern political correctness and virtue signaling and all that. No, his priority is telling a great story with a really immersive atmosphere and to truly replicate authentically a time period and location that the movie takes place. Because one of the things that Robert Eggers is very known for in his movies is historical authenticity. Like, this guy always tries to go to great lengths to recreate every detail with costumes, locations, landscapes and everything to truly give you an authentic feeling, like you're truly experiencing a time period that the movie takes place. And also I would say he's by far the best modern horror director, because vast majority of modern horror movies aren't particularly scary or disturbing in any way. They just feel cheesy and so lame, but the same cannot be said about Robert Eggers, because this guy truly cares about really deep themes also, and truly make his horror movies actually scary as well as deep and thematically rich. And that's why he's the best modern horror director, because as I just said, his horror movies actually are scary and truly convey the message that they are trying to tell. And the one more thing I have to talk about him is he also grew up in New England, and even the first 2 movies in his career took place in New England. And that's another bonus, because when I lived in the United States for 8 years actually, I lived in New England, 3 years in Rhode Island and 5 in Vermont. So I very much relate to him here when it comes to stories taking place in New England, because as I said, I haven't grew up in New England, but again, I did live there for 8 years, so I am very familiar with New England. So that's another wonderful bonus I love about Robert Eggers. Both his first 2 movies actually very much took place in New England, so that's a really wonderful bonus. So let's rank all 4 movies by Robert Eggers. Coming in number 4, it's The Lighthouse. And I almost have no negatives to say about this movie, because there's no bad Robert Eggers movie. Like, all 4 of his movies are really excellent movies. It's just that the ones higher up than this movie are even better, in my opinion. But it doesn't change the fact that there is just no bad Robert Eggers movie. And The Lighthouse is about those 2 lighthouse innkeepers somewhere on a remote island in New England. I like to think it's somewhere on Cape Cod. I mean, the movie doesn't specify the exact location the lighthouse takes place, but I like to think it's somewhere on Cape Cod. I mean, it's a very logical location. I mean, I guess you could also say somewhere in Rhode Island as well, but I personally think Cape Cod is a better location, but ultimately I guess irrelevant, because the movie doesn't specify where it takes place anyway. But off topic, the movie is about those 2 innkeepers of the lighthouse who are stranded on the remote island in their lighthouse because there is a storm, and as a result they are stranded there way longer than they were supposed to be. And then some really creepy things such as hallucinations, paranoia, and the 2 men turning against each other start happening. Lots of people like to interpret it as a Lovecraftian story, which I could totally see, especially that H.P. Lovecraft very much famously had his love stories located somewhere in New England and often involving oceans actually. So yeah, that could totally be seen as a Lovecraftian horror, but it could also be seen, and plenty of people interpret it as just a psychological horror, that all the things that those 2 men are seeing are just a result of isolation and claustrophobia, and it's nothing more than just their paranoia getting the better of them. But that's another amazing thing about this movie. It doesn't really give you definite answers, and as a result makes for very good rewatchability for many different interpretations. And combined, I also love how it's all filmed on all black and white, which very much adds even more atmosphere to the movie and perfectly fits with the whole atmosphere. Overall, I think The Lighthouse is a really great and disturbing horror movie. It's just that next three are even better. So, coming in number 3 is, and we're still in New England, and lots of people actually who consider this movie as Robert Eggers' best movie actually, and I can totally see where they're coming from, but for me it's number 3 because it's my list, so number 3 is The Witch. And yes, this movie is really amazing, and it's no wonder that among lots of Robert Eggers fans it's actually considered his best movie, because this is basically his starting career movie, and everything that's present in all his other movies is very much present here as well. And The Witch is, well, The Lighthouse could be considered either psychological horror or Lovecraftian horror. The Witch, on the other hand, is a folk horror, which very much tells the type of a horror story that you could totally hear among the sermons of the Puritans back in like the 17th and 18th centuries when they were telling those sermons in America. And the story is about a Puritan family who gets exiled from their village in Massachusetts, and then they make a living somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And then the baby of the family, Jacob, gets suddenly taken away, and the oldest daughter of the family, Thomasin, who was tasked with taking care of him, is accused of witchcraft, and the family starts suspecting her of the witch. And then some really creepy and disturbing stuff is happening. And what makes this movie so disturbing and wonderful, among other things, is that disturbing and scariness isn't really from a surface level, but more like on a deep thematic level, stemming from the many things, including the mindset of the time period that the movie takes place and the religious obsession of the family, but also what really lurks there somewhere in the forest, like, as well as the whole claustrophobic feel of isolation that the family is in. And then Anya Taylor-Joy does such a wonderful job as Thomasin, and this is such a wonderful performance. I mean, all the performances are amazing in this movie, but Anya Taylor-Joy as Thomasin by far takes the cake. And as I just said, the very things of historical authenticity and all that Robert Eggers is very much known for are on full here. Like, the dialogue is taken straight out of the 17th century English books and very much totally sound like a real dialogue that would happen in that time period, and together with the costumes and the film big location, as you're watching this movie, it almost feels like Robert Eggers basically went back in time and just filmed all of it happening, because, like, as I said, the historical authenticity is just amazing here, and I don't think there are any director that went for such great lengths of historical authenticity as Robert Eggers has gone here. But as I said, it's also really creepy and disturbing, and not on a surface level but on a more thematic level. But also there are so many different interpretations that you can get out of this movie, like as well, like the very ending of the movie, which I will not spoil. In some ways it feels disturbing, some people would call it liberating, others call it like just like completely symbolic, like, but that's the thing, the movie doesn't give you definite answers. It's all could be given up to interpretation, and there are just no definite answers. But lots of people consider The Witch as Robert Eggers' best work, and I can totally see where they are coming from, because everything that people very much love about Robert Eggers is on full in The Witch. Number 2, and we are leaving New England now for Europe, and number 2 is Robert Eggers' passion project and his newest movie, Nosferatu. And I've seen plenty of people actually saying, oh, the movie isn't particularly good, second half is so boring, could be shorter. Well, if slow movies that take their time bore you, then I guess just go ahead and watch a Marvel movie, because I say that Nosferatu was really excellent, and how slow it moves is actually one of the most appealing things about this movie for me. For me, it wasn't too long. If anything, it was actually too short. Like, the second half was the right length, but I really wish the first half actually was even longer. But oh well, still, everything that makes Robert Eggers amazing is here. And just as The Lighthouse was more like a either psychological horror or Lovecraftian horror, depending on your interpretation, The Witch was folk horror. This, on the other hand, is a gothic horror, and yet everything that we all love about Robert Eggers is on full display here. As I just said, this movie was his passion project for many years, and it just shows, because Nosferatu from 1922 is a great movie, and I never ever felt it needed a remake, especially that the movie was basically an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula under a different name anyway. But if there was a director who could perfectly remake it, it's Robert Eggers. So as soon as I heard Robert Eggers is directing it, I immediately changed my mind, and it became my most anticipated movie of 2024, and it did not disappoint me in any way. As I said, historical authenticity is very much here with the wonderful locations that Robert Eggers picked to film a movie first in the 19th century village in Germany, and then the way he picked Transylvanian highlands and then Count Orlok's castle. All of that was amazing, as well as the village in Transylvania truly felt like a real authentic Transylvanian village, with even some gypsies being on there, and they were very much there in the 19th century. But another thing that is amazing about this movie is Count Orlok, and this truly feels like a scariest and most evil version of the character by far. Like, I really love how the performance by Bill Skarsgård, like, you totally forget that this guy is Bill Skarsgård. His performance was so authentic, like if nobody told me that he was being played by Bill Skarsgård, I likely wouldn't recognize him. And I also really loved his outfit of a Transylvanian nobleman from many centuries before the time period the movie takes place, very much highlighting him as an ancient vampire. But another thing is that I've seen plenty of people saying this wasn't scary at all, but I think that perhaps scary things are scary for different people, because I personally found this movie very, very scary. I mean, maybe not scary in the same way as The Witch, which was more like scary on a more deeper thematic level, while Nosferatu was very much relying on a surface level scary, full of jump scares and creepy, disturbing things happening on screen. But I personally think there was also some deep and thematic scariness as well, especially Count Orlok's weird obsession with Ellen Hutter. Like, that was possibly the major point of the story, but his weird lifelong obsession with Ellen Hutter was some really creepy and disturbing shit, and it could give you so many interpretations, and yet all of them being so disturbing. But overall, I think Nosferatu is a really amazing movie. It's by far my also favorite modern horror movie, actually, and as I said, it was very much Robert Eggers' passion project, and it totally very much felt like it, because everything I wanted from this movie, including scariness, historical authenticity that Robert Eggers is known for, as well as everything else, as well as a good and engaging story, all of that was very much here. Some people were disappointed by Nosferatu. For me, it exceeded my expectations. And my number one favorite Robert Eggers movie, which is, interestingly enough, the only non-horror movie on this list, but in some ways you could on the other hand say it's more like a thriller in some ways. But my favorite Robert Eggers movie by far is historical epic The Northman, and yes, I still very much love The Northman. It's like one of my favorite movies of this decade, probably second one actually, but I very much loved The Northman the first time I seen it, and now upon rewatches I just keep loving it more and more, because first and foremost I really love medieval times, but I also really love the Vikings, and this is by far the most historically authentic Viking movie I ever seen. Can't say historically accurate because a fictional story that never happened, but by far the most historically authentic Viking movie I ever seen. Like, even I did seen some episodes of the Vikings show, but even biggest fans of Vikings told me that it's still nowhere near as historically authentic as The Northman, so that alone already elevates the movie. But also the visuals are really beautiful and gorgeous in this movie. Like, I mean, all of Robert Eggers movies are visually beautiful and gorgeous, but The Northman very much still takes the cake for me on this ground. And if you've been watching my channel, you know I have huge weakness for beautiful visuals and landscapes, and when it comes to visuals and landscapes, I still think The Northman has the best of them all in all of Robert Eggers movies, which is a very high bar to clear because they all have those, and the story is really interesting. I mean, the story is a simple revenge story of Amleth seeing his father killed by his uncle Hjolnir and then growing up and deciding to embark on revenge and avenge his father. But then there are also some really interesting twists and turns that are happening later in the story that I completely did not predict upon my first playthrough, but what I'm saying playthrough, upon my first watch, but yes, I really love The Northman. And the one more thing I love is the allusions to Norse mythology. While I wouldn't say the movie is mythological, I mean, at least not in a literal sense, but it's mostly a Viking historical epic, but the clear allusions and implications of Norse mythology are very much amazing in this movie and very much perfectly make sense in context. But I love how Robert Eggers, instead of choosing to make them too explicit and obvious, he made them more like in the background, which adds an even more immersion and atmosphere to this amazing movie. But overall, I truly love The Northman. Even if it's not a horror movie, it's still my personal favorite movie of Robert Eggers. And also one of my favorite movies of this decade still. And number one on this list. So, here guys, you have my ranking of all 4 Robert Eggers movies. But as I said, there is no bad Robert Eggers movies so far. All 4 of his movies are great. And really there can be good argument made for any of those movies to really be number 1 on this list. In my case, it's purely subjective. If you want to do an objective ranking, then I think this will be impossible, because there is a great argument for any of these movies to really be number 1 on this list. And we also know that the next Robert Eggers movie, which will come out in 2026, is gonna be The Wolfman, taking place in medieval England, and it will be about a werewolf, and I'm so looking forward to it. Together with Nolan's Odyssey, it's probably my most anticipated movie of 2026. I mean, there is some questionable castings in Nolan's Odyssey, but I very much trust Christopher Nolan, so I guess you could say The Wolfman is actually my most anticipated movie of 2026, but I'm so looking forward to The Wolfman. I'm very much interested to see what this time will Robert Eggers bring to the table. And the one more thing I want to talk about is some of the other ideas that Robert Eggers could direct. Maybe someday he can direct an actual Lovecraftian movie, and I mean, don't mean like The Lighthouse where it's up to an interpretation, but an actual adaptation of some story by H.P. Lovecraft. If there is a director, I think, that could direct an amazing Lovecraftian story adapted from H.P. Lovecraft himself, then it's absolutely Robert Eggers. And I'm also hoping that maybe someday he chooses to immerse himself in Polish history and do some period piece taking place in Polish history, because I don't trust anyone in Hollywood at this point to do Polish history or Polish folklore justice. But if there is someone I could very much trust with that, it's again Robert Eggers. So yes, I'm very much hoping that someday Robert Eggers either adapts a Lovecraftian story, or maybe his period piece taking place in Poland, or maybe some Polish folk story. Who knows? I mean, Polish culture is certainly not particularly known in the United States, so it's likely not gonna happen anytime soon, but you can hope, can't you? But overall, Robert Eggers is a really phenomenal director and still one of the few saving graces of Hollywood, and by far the best modern horror director. And I'm so looking to his Wolfman movie in 2026. This is gonna be so exciting, and it's probably my most anticipated movie of 2026. But here you have my so far ranking of current Robert Eggers movies. And by the way, this is the last video I'm gonna make in the week, because tomorrow I'm actually leaving to visit my sister in Paris, so I will be away for like a week. But when I get back from Paris from vacation, then I'll be back doing even more videos. So thank you guys for checking out this ranking. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, when I get back from vacation in a week. Talk to you then. Bye.